The Discouraged Poet by Marianne Moore. Read by Frank Blissett. It was midsummer. The dust hung thick about the poet and his little horse, and the flowers, which knocked together behind the retreating heels of the horse, looked gray to the poet. The famous bard is quite right. I do not know enough ever to become famous. I shall not try to write, he said. He was lurching comfortably in the saddle, but he spoke wearily, for he was thinking hard of his visit to the sage. You'd like to dream for hours and hours of nodding gardens tall with flowers, of reddening vines and small round towers? My, but it's bad. Isn't it bad, Jack? He said, crushing the paper in his hands, regardless of the shadowy, neatly blocked oblongs of writing which covered it. The little horse tossed his forelock and switched his tail. The roll dropped by the road, and the poet lifted the sagging rein and dug gently into the animal's ribs. They jogged on easily for a mile or so. Then, when the gray line of the town, and the rounding masses of green, and the bits of red chimney, and the swallows had all come into view once more, the poet dropped the bridle again and slipped from the horse's back, with care not to alight on more dandelions than he could help. He patted the creature's neck, then turned it loose, for it did not belong to him, and, with a last glance over his shoulder, trudged on by himself till he had come before the great door of his and his guardian's abode. He gazed at the forbidding door, looked into the gray-green distance, and then, glancing at the ground, sat down to examine a flower which had been blooming during his absence. He remained for some time, with his hands clasping his knees. Then, having made up his mind to enter the house, he got to his feet and was soon in his guardian's presence. "My lord," he said, "I have come to say that I am no longer a poet." Then he paused. "You are glad, perhaps?" The old man looked hard at the youth and said, "I am glad indeed, more glad than I can say, my son." There was another long silence, during which the youth worked his toe through imaginary fringe. "My lad," said the guardian with a frown, "you are young. You do not know enough to write." The poet turned away, and there was an angry look about him. He wandered through various rooms and entries till he found a large, dark window-sill upon which he sat down. And he made no motion save to rub an eyelash from one of his eyes, and to pass his hand slowly along his calm, tilted chin. "I don't know," he queried hesitatingly. "The bard may know, but you, my careful guardian, you don't know about verse, or me. To the winds with distemper. I'll roam the woods, and then, if I wish, I'll write." He jumped up and strode back through room after room. He passed his guardian, but paid no attention to him, and paused only long enough on the sill of the great forbidding doorway to adjust a shapeless cap upon his determined head. The guardian plucked a companion by the sleeve and remarked, "This new decision becomes him, friend. Should you not say so?" That was The Discouraged Poet by Marianne Moore. Read by Frank Blissett.